Evening, Peter. All right, folks, by my clock, that is now 6 o'clock. Time to call the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for November the 2nd to order. This is an electronic meeting. We have all members of the committee in attendance. I will ask for you to indicate your attendance in the order that I see you on the screen. Rod Gordon.
Sorry, no mic here.
Nathan Townend.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Buderick.
Present.
Thank you. Penny Porter.
Present.
Thank you. Carol Parks. I'll take that as a present.
Yeah, present.
And Jim Hagedorn.
Present.
And we have staff with us as well, of course. We have Peter Voss, Bowden Winnicky, Andrea Furness, Jane Austin, and Deb Chapman. That right, meeting has been called to order. Welcome to any of the attendees outside of the committee. And look for an adoption of the agenda. Are there any known edits or amendments to the agenda from staff? No? Thank you. And I look for a motion to approve the agenda. And Penny Porter, Jim Hagedorn. I'd call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? I'll go to Jim Hagedorn.
There we go. I'll be declaring on item 5.3, the SSB associate at 16 Manitou Crescent, family member is an employee of the benefiting property.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will also be declaring on that same item, 5.3, as an adjacent property owner. I will turn the chair to Councillor Porter at the time. All right. Is there any other disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I move to item 4.1, the Committee of Adjustment minutes from October the 5th. Are there any known errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? All right, Mike Buderick, Ron Gordon, thank you. All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving into our public meetings. We'll start with item 5.1, Bayshore Drive, Loyalist Cove Landings, minor variance. We have a report before us. I believe Mr. Voss will speak to it. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Peter Vass. I'm a planning technician with Loyalist Township. I'll be speaking to the minor variance application by the owner, Loyalist Cove Landings Incorporated, submitted by the authorized agent Doug Princeton with Forefront Engineering Incorporated. The variances being requested are to accommodate a 5-unit row house dwelling that is being planned for a smaller section of the marina property located at the southwest corner along the waterfront of Lake Ontario. There are 4 items being asked for relief that are listed in the report, all relatively minor in nature. As we go through the review, you'll see how they work out. Just as some background, in 2013, the applicant obtained approval for a plan of subdivision that included this property intended to be used for the roadhouse dwelling. The rowhouse is now at permitted use as an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment were subsequently approved. Committee will recall from the last meeting that the application was deferred. There were some public concerns raised in terms of the building height. And the applicant was offered an opportunity to go back and their comments and revise the design. Has been provided with an exact measurement of 10.5 meters. This is much more in keeping with the zoning bylaw. As part of the concurrent site plan application for this development, we noticed a few other items that needed to be added in terms of the reduction of the floodplain and minimum parking aisle width, which the applicant has requested to be added to this application. The subject property is designated medium density residential, special policy area 3 in the township's official plan, and is primarily zoned residential type 5, exception 8, and also zoned open space 4 on exception 4 on the breakwater along Lake Ontario. In looking at a minor variance application, we have to consider the 4 tests under the Planning Act. These include, does the request meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan of the zoning bylaw? Is it desirable use of the land? And is the request minor in nature? Looking at the first test, we looked at the official plans of the Lennox and Acton County, the township plan, and also the provincial policy statement. These documents generally speak to allowing this type of development as a permitted use. They encourage mixed residential use and intensification in urban areas, and also that we consider natural hazards. In terms of the natural hazards, of course, we've involved the Conservation Authority. Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority was involved in all the previous official plan amendment zoning applications. Site analysis was conducted at the time, identifying site-specific conditions, and the current proposal does not appear to be in conflict with the highlighted hazard areas. The requested variances are not considered to affect the residential nature of the property. So therefore, staff are of the opinion that the intent of the official plan is upheld and satisfied as the first test. We now are going to look at the second test, which is the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. As mentioned, there was a wave operation analysis conducted for the site that effectively reduced the floodplain elevation and confirmed an appropriate minimum exterior opening elevation of 76.449 meters, which is the requested relief. The Conservation Authority indicated no concerns based on the proposed variances related to the analysis of in that report, and staff feel the hazards have adequately been addressed. In terms of the height of the building, under normal circumstances, staff would have allowed a little bit of a buffer just for construction purposes, but under the circumstances with the amount of public input and concern about the height of the building, we're asking for the application to be submitted to be limited to the scope of the submitted drawings. In regard to the 6 meter requested parking aisle width, the Ontario Building Code requires a 6 meter portion of the roadway to be dedicated for fire department access. Staff see no problems or no concerns with the proposed variance in the second test. As to whether the proposal is appropriate use of land, the requested variances are not considered to negatively impact the property or neighboring properties and will not create natural hazards, therefore meeting the third test. And is it minor in nature? The variances can be considered minor as they are considered suitable given the site conditions and are not seen to adversely impact the residential use of the property, surrounding properties, or create natural hazards. Therefore, recommending approval of the applications subject to the following on the drawing submitted with the application. For committee's knowledge, the previous public comments are submitted as part of the report, along with 2 supplementary comments by previous commenters. One acknowledging the height concerns that were addressed, and she was acknowledging that they were addressed. In regard to the traffic and congestion concerns that were highlighted in previous reports, as well as safety hazards, staff are of the view that these concerns were addressed in the applicable supporting studies for the development completed as part of the draft plan of subdivision, rezoning, and official plan amendment that were approved in 2013. The traffic study was submitted at that time as well. Concerns raised in regard to advertising and marketing on the residential development is not a consideration staff can provide comment on based on the 4 tests of the minor variances outlined in the Planning Act. I understand that Doug Princeton, the authorized agent, is with us this evening and wishes to speak to the application, so we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to the audience, does any member of the committee have a question for staff on this? Seeing none, I go to the public. I'll start with the developer. We understand you're in the room. Mr. Brinson? It looked like you were unmuted there for a second. There you are.
I trust that's fine. Thanks. As mentioned, Doug Princeton with Forefront Engineering. I represent Dave and Michelle Hinton of Loyalist Cove Marina. I was just going to take a minute here of your time just to go through these minor variance requests for a minute. I note that the plans are also being advanced right now through site plan control, and that's advancing well. As Peter mentioned, there's 4 minor variances that are being requested for this townhouse development. One is increasing the maximum building height. The second is lowering the minimum floor elevation. The third is reducing the setback for the second floor decks. And the fourth is reducing the minimum parking or drive aisle width. The first 2 items were in front of the committee last month, as you know, and were deferred to this meeting. I did speak at that time as well, and I'm not going to repeat some of the material that I went through, other than just to give a little bit more information on these specific variance requests. Perhaps before I do that, just want to sort of re-mention the townhouse development was envisioned in the subdivision plans for the marina, the larger marina that were advanced about 10 years ago and then approved in 2013, and with the site rezoning. And the Hintons, again, repeat that all the sales material for the subdivision and the large site signs certainly included consideration, in fact, a block for this townhouse. Regardless of that, the variances that we're here for tonight, the building height. So Loyalist Cove Landings has certainly heard the neighbors' concerns about the building height. What's in front of the committee here tonight is a variance for 0.5 meters, or as Peter sort of more closely defined that. The design has been reduced significantly, the height, with the building roof slope adjusted to bring us down to where we're at right now. On the building opening elevation, the water elevation has been accurately determined through analysis of floodplain and wave uprush, and then that material has been reviewed by CRCA and township staff and peer reviewed as well, I think previously. So that building height opening that we're considering certainly includes what that analysis presents, plus an appropriate safety factor as well. The the variance for the floodplain setback for the second story decks. The floodplain for the site includes an allowance for flooding, wave uprush, and a setback from that, and certainly what we're looking for here, and I guess that line is where the building is located. The variance that we're looking for is for the second story balconies and decks, which just encroaches, I think, 0.7 meters into that 19-meter overall setback. And then the last item is the driveway aisle widths. The lane in question has driveways on both sides for the townhouses. On the other side, much of it has sort of visitor parking. And we feel there's ample room for snow storage at the ends of the driveway and at the sides for emergency vehicles, and is adequate certainly for this development. We're comfortable with that. So thank you for your time and consideration. I'm certainly available for questions from the committee members now or later at any time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Committee, do we have any questions for Mr. Princeton right now? And Penny Porter, go ahead.
I asked through you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned that you had reduced the height of the building by adjusting the slope of the roof. What was the slope and what is it now?
Okay, I'm on. I wasn't sure if I was on. So before, most of it was a 10-12 pitch, Councillor Porter, and now I believe it's a 5-12 pitch. So that's picked up certainly much of the difference, and then there's also some adjustments in the exterior grading to bring that down to the 10.5 meters total building height.
Okay, just to follow up through that question. So 0.5 a meter, we're essentially talking, what, about 15, 16 inches, somewhere in there, 16.5 inches. I guess the trade-off is to go any lower than a 5-12, you would be looking at getting to a flat roof situation, which would, in my opinion, take away from the aesthetics. So there's trade-offs there. So I was just curious about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee have questions for Mr. Princeton? Seeing none, thank you very much, Doug. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this? Anyone? Oh, I see a hand up. Brian, I can see your name, but can I get you to state your name and address and tell the committee your thoughts? Brian, you're still muted.
Hey, good evening. My name is Brian Regan. I live on Windermere Boulevard. This is just a question for clarity more than anything else. Peter, you mentioned that your recommendation was to approve the plan based on the details of the submitted drawings, and the request for variance is for 10.5 meters. but the information package shows the front and rear elevations of this building to be 38.9 feet or 11.9 meters. I was just for clarity, I was wondering, is this building going to be 11.9 meters from grade, or is it 10.5?
Mr. Voss, do you know?
I would have to review the drawings again. I don't recall offhand, so I'm not sure if if Andrea is on board here because she was involved in the site plan analysis. She might have some background on that one.
I mean, there may be some revised drawings out there somewhere. I'm just not, like I say, it's just a question for clarity, that's all.
Ms. Furness, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there's it is 10.5 meters. I think where it gets a little bit confusing is the way the zoning bylaw defines height. So depending on the type of roof, it defines it in different ways. So the drawings show different elevations at different locations being taken from in the drawings. So the particular ones we're looking at it's taken from at grade to the midpoint of the roof. So while it may appear that some parts may be larger, that's not in terms of how the height is defined in the zoning bylaw. So the application is appropriately showing the 10.5 meters with the way height is defined in the bylaw and what they're seeking the variance for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that clear?
That's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And did you have any other questions? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to this? I'm not seeing any other hands. One last chance. Okay, having seen none, I'll turn to the committee. Do we have a motion? And I'll go with Ms. Porter.
I'll move to receive the report and adopt the recommendations.
So moved, seconded by Mr. Hagedorn. Thank you. And mover, any comment?
Just that I believe they've made several changes to address some of the comments and some of the concerns of the surrounding neighborhoods. And I think it's a good compromise that they've reached.
Do you, seconder?
No, nothing more.
Okay. Any other members of the committee wish to address? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And to approve. Move on to item 5.2, which is 1 Burley Court for Roger and Heather Moreau. And Mr. Voss, you have the report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application has been submitted on behalf of the owners Roger and Heather Moreau, who wish to demolish the existing 2-tier rear yard deck and shed to be replaced with a 1-level deck and stairs on an expanded footprint. The relief being sought is to decrease the street center line setback from 16 meters to 15.3 meters, decrease the rear yard setback from 6 meters to 2.5 meters, and decrease the exterior side yard setback from 6 meters to 5.3 meters. The property is located at the northwest corner of the Burley Court and Manor Road intersection in Bath, otherwise known as the Heritage Point subdivision. The subject property is designated low density residential in the township's official plan and is zoned residential type 2 zone in the zoning bylaw. When committee is looking at a minor variance, once again, we have to look at the 4 tests of the Planning Act, whether it meets the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and is it a desirable use of land, and is it minor in nature. In the official plan for the first test, the residential uses are recognized in both the county and the Loyalist Township official plans, and both plans support the proposal. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal constitutes an efficient use of land. The Cataract Region Conservation Authority was contacted and they have indicated no concerns with the proposal. Staff have reviewed the area in terms of drainage and road compatibility and have no concerns. The provincial policy statement considerations have been reviewed, and staff are of the opinion that the public safety concerns have been appropriately considered and that the proposal conforms to the intent and purpose of the official plan. That meets the first test. In terms of the second test, we look at the zoning bylaw. Although the main portion of the proposed deck portion only protrudes 0.7 meters into the 6-meter rear yard setback, the proposed stairs off the deck extend further into the setback, closer to the rear lot line, therefore requiring a setback relief from 6 meters to 2.5 meters. A condition is recommended by staff to restrict the placement of the structures on the drawings to ensure future use in the remaining open space on the property, just to make sure there's enough room in the backyard. Similarly, the removal of the shed has been included as a condition of the variance to ensure that open space, and also to maintain the lot coverage requirements, because they're very close to the zoning requirements as it is for lot coverage. The proposed development appears to be in keeping with the residential nature of the neighborhood and will not negatively impact amenity space or the streetscape. Therefore, it is the opinion of staff that the proposal meets the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the second test. In terms of the third test, is a desirable use of land. The requested variances are not considered to impact the use of the property for residential purposes or the general character of the surrounding area. The encroachments of the proposed deck and stairs into the various setbacks are not considered excessive in nature, and the open space has been considered. It's therefore the opinion of staff that the proposal is an appropriate development use of the land. In terms of being minor in nature, the proposed variances are considered minor. The encroachment into the exterior side yard and street centerline setbacks will generally not be visible or recognizable from the Manor Road. It's not expected to impact the vehicular viewing angle at that particular intersection. So for people turning the corners, it's not really changing drastically. The proposed deck expansion into the rear yard is not expected to impact the streetscape. There's already an existing deck there. There's going to be a replaced one, slightly larger, and the stairs coming off the deck are further from the road, so they're not as visible. So staff are the opinion that the proposed development is in keeping with the neighboring properties and therefore considered the proposal minor in nature. Staff did receive one letter from the neighbor to the north that indicates support for the proposal, and another public member who had questions but indicated that they had no concerns with the application after some correspondence. Staff are recommending approval of the application subject to the following conditions: that the approved variances apply only to the locations of the structures identified on the drawings submitted with the application, and that the existing shed located on the property be removed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Voss. Committee, do we have any questions for the staff at this time? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? And I see Mr. Stokes' hand up. Mr. Stokes, welcome. If you would like to give us your name and address and then tell us your thoughts.
Hi, Rod Stokes. I'm the agent for the owners, Roger and Heather Morrow.
Thank you.
Just want a couple comments. I just want to make a note that as late as today, I think you did receive another letter from the adjacent owners to the west of this property, actually in support of the application, which is should be noted. Also, in addition to not only the reconstruction of the deck, that I'm working quite closely with Wentworth Landscape Group, and we're putting together a very comprehensive landscape plan that will further enhance the property for the Morrows and also that of the adjacent property owner to the west. So I think there's going to be some major improvements to the usability and the landscaping of the property. And if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to address those.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Do we have any questions for Mr. Stokes at this time? Seeing none, and I thank you very much, Mr. Stokes. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? I'm seeing no other hands. I guess not. Committee, is there any if there are any further questions, or could I get a motion with regards to this application? And I'll go with Jim Hagedorn.
Move to receive and adopt the recommendations.
So moved. And Mr. Buderick for second. Any comments?
No.
And then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And now, as we move to item number 5.3, I will step out of the chair and ask Penny Porter to take the chair, as myself and Mr. Hagedorn have declared conflicts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moving on to item 5.3, 16 Manitou Crescent East, consent to sever. We have a report, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Voss to present the report.
Thank you very much. This application is brought to us and involves actually two consents. The applicant is SSB Associates Incorporated, and they have requested two items, both to sever a lot and also to obtain a temporary easement on the property, on the retained property. The severance is for 1.5 hectares and is located at 16 Manitou Crescent East. That will result in the parcel that will separate the existing Windsor retirement residence that's on the site. The severance will leave a remnant parcel of 2.7 hectares that will eventually be used for future residential subdivision. In terms of the easement, the second relief being sought, they would like to, consent to be sought. They would like to obtain the temporary easement along the future road allowance in that in the retained lands in that proposed subdivision area. The intent of the easement is to provide access for servicing and drainage for the existing services that are going to Windsor retirement residents until such time as a future road is constructed as part of the Loyalist Shores Phase 2 subdivision, future subdivision. For some background, the proposed retained parcel recently received approval for a draft plan of subdivision for a proposed 46 detached dwellings, known as Loyalist Shores Phase 2. An official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment were also approved for a portion of land intended to be included as part of the Windsor retirement residence site in order to align the zoning and the official plan designation. The amendments were required in order to bring this file to committee. They were approved and are in place. So now the lots are, the proposed severed lot is designated medium density residential in the township's official plan and is zoned residential type 6 exception 1 in the Loyalist Township zoning bylaw. The proposed easement area is located on the retained lands and is designated low density residential and is zoned residential type 3 exception 15 in the township zoning bylaw. In reviewing this application, committee must consider the provincial policy statement, County of Lennox and Addington official plan, Loyalist Township official plan, and the Loyalist Township zoning bylaw. In terms of the analysis, we looked at the provincial policy statement. Staff sees that the PPS promotes the coordination of land use planning with infrastructure planning and speaks to avoiding development patterns that would prevent the efficient expansion of the settlement areas. Considerations such as road access, servicing, and stormwater management have been heavily analyzed as part of the approved plan of subdivision and also the site plan control application for the Windsor seniors residence. The proposed easement will ensure that access for servicing and drainage for existing services to the seniors residence is maintained, and staff are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. The proposed residential uses in terms of the severance are recognized in both the official plans. The county official plan encourages and promotes regeneration, a full range of housing types, the efficient use of existing and planned infrastructure, and a variety of complementary and compatible land uses. The type of housing, road access, servicing, and stormwater management and potential impacts to neighboring properties designated as low density residential have been heavily scrutinized as part of the approved plan of subdivision and the site plan control application for the seniors residence. In addition, the additional lands that were rezoned and redesignated in order to be included with the severance area provides an additional buffer for the retirement residents to the proposed low-density residential subdivision next door. A portion of this application is to establish a temporary easement on the retained lands for servicing and drainage, which is permitted in accordance with the official plan. The proposed easement will ensure that the access and servicing and drainage for existing services to the seniors residence is maintained, and therefore staff are of the opinion that the application meets the intent and purpose of the official plan. With the recent approved rezoning and official plan amendments that now align with the retirement resident property boundaries south. Otherwise, zoning provision considerations were addressed as part of the approved site plan control application for the seniors residence. The size and shape of the lot are appropriate according to the zoning. The requested easement is considered temporary and will serve to prohibit construction in that area to protect the servicing until the next phase of the subdivision proceeds. Staff therefore are recommending approval of this application subject to the following conditions, with the standard conditions for survey and legal documents to be provided to the township, as well as conditions 4 and 5. Condition 4 being the establishment of an easement for servicing and drainage over the retained parcel in favor of a severed lot as depicted on the application sketch. And condition 5, that an additional clause be added to the existing site plan agreement stating that the owner will consent to the discharge of the temporary easement and pay the applicable costs. The applicant has been made aware of these conditions. No other concerns were raised from external agencies or public for this particular file. Thank you. We're recommending approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Voss. I'll turn to the committee. Does the committee members have any questions for staff? Okay, I'll turn to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this public meeting? I don't see any. I'm not sure if there is any. Debbie Chapman, if there is somebody, if you could let me know. I don't see anybody on my screen.
No, we only have, it looks like one attendee and hands not up.
All right, thank you very much. So we do have a recommendation, so I'll turn to the committee for a motion, please. Mr. Townend.
Motion to receive and adopt.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Ms. Parks? Mover, any comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Seconder, any comment? Anybody else would like to speak to the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. And I'll turn the chair back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. That brings us to the end of the public meetings for this agenda. The next meeting date is scheduled for December the 7th, as usual, pending applications that are appropriate for that date. And Mr. Voss, do we know at this point that there are?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we will have another committee of adjustment on December the 7th. At this time, I look for a motion to adjourn. And I'll go with Ron Gordon and Mike Buderick. And call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. And to the committee members, we will be going into a committee of the whole through another Zoom link in just a few moments. I have 6:36 right now. Let's call it 6:45 to plan to be into that meeting. We'll start it at that time. Thank you very much. And